On the morning of September 7, 1997, city workers in Albany, New York made a disturbing discovery in Washington Park. Near the Moses statue, they found the remains of a newborn infant wrapped in charred linen cloth. The baby boy weighed 9 pounds and 3 ounces. An autopsy determined the infant had been born alive and healthy, with no signs of injury or natural health conditions that could have caused his death. The discovery shocked the Albany community and launched a homicide investigation that would span nearly 3 decades. Investigators named the infant Baby Moses because of where his remains were found. The case immediately captured public attention. The brutal nature of the crime, the vulnerability of the victim, and the mystery surrounding the child's identity galvanized the community. Former Albany Mayor Jerry Jennings arranged for the baby to be buried in Graceland Cemetery under a headstone reading, "Moses Washington, Citizen of Albany, Child of God." The funeral was attended by community members who mourned a child they had never known, but whose tragic death touched them deeply. The investigation began immediately. Albany police collected evidence and conducted an autopsy. Medical examiners preserved blood and tissue samples containing the baby's DNA profile, which would prove critical decades later. Detectives canvassed the area around Washington Park, interviewed potential witnesses, and followed every lead they could develop. Despite extensive efforts, no substantial information emerged about the baby's identity or who was responsible for his death. Over the years, detectives periodically attempted to have the DNA profile analyzed at state laboratories, searching for matches in databases. No matches were found. The case went cold. For many Albany police officers and detectives, the Baby Moses case remained a source of profound frustration and sadness. They had worked the investigation extensively, but had been unable to identify the baby or find the person responsible. Officers who were on the force in 1997 would later describe the case as one of the most haunting in the department's history. Some detectives who eventually retired said they thought about the case every day, wondering if it would ever be solved. The breakthrough began in fall 2020. The Albany Police Department had a partnership with the Cold Case Analysis Center at the College of St. Rose. Detective Melissa Morey presented the Baby Moses case to students and advisors at the center, directed by Dr. Christina Lane. The center organized cold case materials to allow modern investigative techniques to be applied efficiently. When they received the Baby Moses files, the evidence was compiled in a binder spanning many years. The center organized this material and identified which evidence might benefit from modern forensic analysis. By February 2021, they returned the organized case file to police. Several months later, David Fallon, a former FBI special agent working as an advisor with the center, suggested that the preserved blood samples might be suitable for analysis by the FBI's DNA laboratory. Advances in forensic technology since 1997 meant DNA analysis could now accomplish things that were previously impossible. In 2022, Albany police worked with Othram, a private DNA laboratory in the Woodlands, Texas, that specializes in applying modern DNA sequencing technology to forensic evidence. Othram scientists are experts at recovering and analyzing human DNA from trace quantities of degraded or contaminated materials. The company was founded in 2018 and had become a leading resource for law enforcement agencies working on cold cases. Othram developed a comprehensive DNA profile for Baby Moses using the preserved tissue and blood samples from the 1997 autopsy. Once Othram created a detailed DNA profile, it was provided to the FBI's Forensic Genealogical DNA team. This team uses DNA profiles to conduct searches through forensic databases and to build family trees that can identify unknown individuals. Forensic genealogical DNA had become a powerful tool in solving cold cases, combining traditional genealogical research with modern DNA analysis. The FBI team used the DNA profile to search databases and identify potential genetic relatives. The forensic genealogical investigation led to a specific family. Through careful analysis of family relationships and genealogical records, the FBI team narrowed down potential candidates for baby Moses's mother. The investigation eventually focused on Carrie Mazuka of Altamont, New York. In 1997, when baby Moses was found, Mazuka had been 25 years old and living on Western Avenue in Albany, approximately 5 blocks west of Washington Park. On September 6, 2024, Albany police arrested Carrie Mazuka, charging her with second-degree murder, tampering with physical evidence, and concealment of a human corpse. The arrest came 27 years after baby Moses was discovered. According to law enforcement sources, Mazuka told detectives she had been unaware she was pregnant when she gave birth in a bathtub. During legal proceedings, prosecutors revealed that Mazuka admitted suffocating her newborn son shortly after birth by placing her hand over his mouth and nose. She wrapped the body in linen cloth, placed it in a bag, and brought it to Washington Park. To destroy evidence and obscure fingerprints, she set the cloth on fire before leaving the remains near the Moses statue. Mazuka was arraigned and remanded to Albany County Jail. On February 13, 2025, she pled guilty to first-degree manslaughter and tampering with physical evidence as part of a plea agreement. On April 18, 2025, Carrie Mazuka appeared for sentencing before acting judge Roger McDonough. She gave a brief statement saying she did a horrible, unimaginable thing and lived with remorse and regret. She said she was a great mother to her other 2 children and had lived a law-abiding life, asking the judge to consider a lighter sentence. Judge McDonough described the case as a tragedy beyond measure, noting that baby Moses would have been 27 years old and likely had children of his own. He sentenced Mazuka to 25 years in state prison for manslaughter, with a concurrent sentence for tampering with evidence, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. Albany Police Chief Brendan Cox, a patrol officer in 1997, emphasized that police do not forget cases even when they go cold. Every case remains important to investigators who work to bring justice and closure. Cox highlighted both new technology and the dedication of officers who worked the case for decades. Commander Melissa Morey noted that retired detectives who thought about this case every day were finally able to see it through to conclusion. Police also located the infant's biological father, who had no knowledge of the pregnancy and was cleared of involvement. District Attorney Lee Kindlon praised the detectives' efforts and promised to form a task force to review other cold cases. Mayor Kathy Sheehan commended law enforcement members who never gave up on seeking justice, remembering the shock felt throughout Albany when baby Moses was discovered. The baby Moses case was the 11th publicly announced case in New York where investigators used technology developed by Othram. The case demonstrated how preserved forensic evidence, combined with advances in DNA technology and forensic genealogy, could solve decades-old crimes. After the College of St. Rose closed in June 2024, the State University at Albany announced it would relaunch the Cold Case Analysis Center. For Albany's law enforcement and citizens who mourned an unknown child for 27 years, the case finally had an answer.
On September 16, 1984, a motorist pulled over on Interstate 93 South near Manchester, New Hampshire. About 40 feet from the highway, obscured by bushes and trees, the driver discovered decomposed human remains. Police responded, and the medical examiner determined the victim had been shot to death. Through dental records, investigators identified the body as 23-year-old Brian Watson from South Boston, Massachusetts. His mother had reported him missing on July 28, 1984. The discovery launched an investigation that would span nearly 4 decades. Brian Watson was last seen alive in mid-July 1984 in South Boston. He was a young father living in an area dominated by organized crime. During this period, South Boston was under the influence of James Whitey Bulger, a notorious mobster who controlled the drug trade through intimidation and violence. Bulger collected protection money from drug dealers. Anyone selling drugs without his permission faced serious consequences. According to information that emerged during the investigation, one of Bulger's drug dealers complained to Bulger about a new dealer selling angel dust in South Boston without permission. Bulger confronted the new dealer and demanded $5,000 up front plus $1,000 per week. On July 16, 1984, the dealer who had been shaken down decided to find out who had informed Bulger about his operation. He enlisted Michael Lewis, who was 24 years old and connected to the South Boston criminal network. The two men searched the neighborhood. During this search, they encountered Brian Watson, who told them he could lead them to the person they were looking for. Watson got into the back seat of their car. According to evidence developed by investigators, as the three men drove through South Boston, Michael Lewis suddenly turned around with a semi-automatic firearm and shot Brian Watson multiple times. Watson died in the vehicle. Lewis and the other man drove from South Boston into New Hampshire. They pulled off Interstate 93 South in Manchester and carried Watson's body approximately 40 feet from the highway into a wooded area. The investigation began immediately after Watson's body was discovered. New Hampshire State Police, Manchester Police, and Boston Police launched a joint investigation. They made some initial progress, but were unable to identify who was responsible or secure enough evidence to bring charges. The case went cold. The investigation received a significant break in 2009, 25 years after Watson's death. Information from the United States Attorney's Office in Boston provided new leads. However, investigators still lacked sufficient evidence to secure an indictment. The case remained unsolved. The breakthrough finally came in 2022, 38 years after Brian Watson's murder. Investigators with the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, the New Hampshire State Police Major Crime Unit, the Manchester Police Department, and the Boston Police Department had continued working the case over the years, refusing to let it remain unsolved. In 2022, they obtained new information that provided sufficient evidence to move forward with charges. The specific nature of this new evidence was not initially disclosed publicly, but it was substantial enough to convince prosecutors that they could successfully pursue an indictment and potentially secure a conviction at trial. On May 27, 2022, a grand jury in Suffolk County, Massachusetts, returned a first-degree murder indictment against Michael Lewis, now 61 years old. Lewis was arrested in South Boston and charged with shooting Brian Watson. On May 31, 2022, Lewis was arraigned in Suffolk Superior Court out of public view. He pled not guilty and was held without bail. Prosecutors revealed that Lewis and another man had been searching for someone who had informed on a drug dealer to Bulger. When they encountered Watson, he claimed he could help them. During the drive, Lewis turned around with a semi-automatic firearm and shot Brian Watson multiple times. Shannon said that the case provided a glimpse into a very different Boston that should never be allowed to happen again. This was gang violence and systematic extortion. Brian Watson was a young father cut down in an environment of fear created by a gang influenced by Whitey Bulger. New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella noted that while Hollywood might glorify that era, the criminal actors were not heroes. The human suffering from that time was still being felt decades later. Prosecutors revealed that a witness had recently come forward with information. According to prosecutor John Verner, this witness told investigators he knew Lewis and over the years had heard him talk about his involvement in Watson's shooting and killing. This witness testimony, combined with decades of evidence, provided the basis for the indictment. Lewis's defense attorney, Jamie Sultan, questioned aspects of the prosecution's case. The case was scheduled to return to court on July 7, 2022. The legal process continued for more than 2 years after the initial arrest. Prosecutors in Massachusetts and New Hampshire worked together to build their case. On November 6, 2025, Michael Lewis appeared in Suffolk Superior Court in Boston. Rather than proceed to trial, Lewis entered a guilty plea. He pled guilty to 2 counts of manslaughter. 1 count was for the killing of Brian Watson in 1984. The 2nd count was for the killing of William Villani in 1993. Villani had been his supervisor at the Boston Housing Authority, and that killing had occurred over a dispute about work shifts. Lewis was sentenced to 15 years in state prison for the 2 manslaughter convictions. Both prosecutors and defense attorneys described the plea agreement and sentence as a compromise. The guilty plea meant that the Brian Watson case, which had remained unsolved for 41 years, was officially closed. Brian Watson's daughter, Jessica Prioli, attended the court proceedings and addressed Lewis directly. She told him he was a coward. While Lewis had lived his life freely for years, Watson's family had lived with the emptiness he created. They had carried the weight of what he did. The impact of his actions had been felt by Watson's family for more than 4 decades. New Hampshire Attorney General John Formella released a statement following the guilty plea. He said the resolution stood as a testament to the determination of investigators who refused to let time stand in the way of justice. Nearly 40 years after Brian Watson was killed, his family could finally have some measure of closure. Formella expressed deep gratitude to partners in Massachusetts and New Hampshire who never stopped working toward this outcome. He specifically thanked the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, the Boston Police Department, the United States Attorney's Office in Boston, the New Hampshire Cold Case Unit, the New Hampshire State Police Major Crime Unit, and the Manchester Police Department for their collaboration and commitment. The Brian Watson case represents the dangers of the drug trade and organized crime that dominated South Boston in the 1980s. It also demonstrates how cold cases can be solved decades later through persistent investigation, interagency cooperation, and witnesses who eventually come forward with crucial information. The case required coordination between multiple law enforcement agencies across 2 states and the federal government, showing the importance of jurisdictional cooperation in solving complex crimes. For Brian Watson's family, particularly his daughter Jessica, the guilty plea brought an end to 41 years of waiting for answers in justice. The case that began with the discovery of remains along a New Hampshire highway in 1984 was finally, officially closed.